Project Puffin began over 50 years ago when Dr. Stephen Kress hatched a plan to bring puffins back to their historic nesting grounds off the coast of Maine. Over the past decades, Project Puffin has been hugely successful in our mission. We now boast over 1,000 nesting pairs of puffins on Maine's islands. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sophie Larson. I am the Communication and Outreach Assistant this year at National Audubon's Project Puffin. Today, I will be sharing an interview that I conducted with Coco Faber, who is the island supervisor on Seal Island in Maine. Located 20 miles off the coast of Rockland, Seal Island is the largest island that Project Puffin manages. This strip of sparsely vegetated rock is crucial habitat for puffins, guillemots, razorbills, great cormorants, storm petrels, and terns. Last week, I had the chance to visit Seal Island and interview Coco about her work with the project and her illustrations on the book, The Atlas of Kinship. This is Coco's 11th season with the project. She has an encyclopedic knowledge of the island and the birds that call it home. Her work as a researcher informs her work for the book, which is a collection of essays that illustrates the connection between people, seabirds, and place. Now let's tune into the interview to hear from Coco herself. Thank you so much for chatting and taking the time out to talk about your new book and also just kind of your cool journey. So just to start out, I kind of wanted to like give people an overview of your history and like how you got into the project and all of that. So kind of when did you start and how did you get into the project and how long have you been here?
Yeah. I kind of got to like live the dream of this project because I came out of undergrad and this was my first job when I graduated from college. So I graduated and then the next day, or maybe that afternoon, I like drove up to base. And then like the day after that went out to Stratton Island, and that was my first island. And then I have just kept coming back because I really fell in love with these birds and the people here, and especially the main islands. And so this is my 11th year working for the project. And I really didn't have a strong background in this kind of work, and I didn't really even know that it existed before I was doing it. And when I first came out to the islands, I didn't even know if we were going to like touch birds at all. So it was all really eye-opening and really exciting for me. And then I got to be trained by so many really skilled, experienced people. And then I got to get to the point where now I get to train other people, and there's still so much that I get to learn like from the island and from the birds and from other people I work with here. So that I feel like I really got to have this incredible experience like over this time of getting to really know these places.
That's so cool. So what was like the hook? What was the thing that was like, oh, I love this?
I think the thing that I keep coming back to in why I particularly love working in seabird colonies and on islands, and even like opposed to like some of the other types of bird work that I've done or conservation work that I've done, is that we live with the birds here. And so it's often less about these like dramatic experiences or big deal things and about that like we get to just see them every day. And so we get to know them in the way that you get to know the people that you live with, and you get to sort of understand all their little idiosyncrasies and habits and stuff. And you know, we get to watch the terns like scratch their chin with their foot like while they're flying, like all these little motions and stuff, and just getting to have that be part of your everyday life, I think was the thing that kind of blew my mind. It felt like I got to like step behind the curtain of a whole nother world and then live there. And that is just like magical.
Yeah, I'm just getting a taste of it, but it is pretty magical. So kind of tying into, you're also an artist as well as being a researcher, which I feel like those things you don't think science and art kind of go hand in hand all the time, but I feel like there are a lot of researchers who are also artists. And you recently illustrated for the book, Atlas of Kinship. Could you just give a brief overview of what that book is about?
Yeah, so I did all these illustrations for this book that it doesn't quite fit exactly into any category, I think, which is part of what makes it an exciting project. But yeah, it's called Atlas of Kinship, and the basic idea that the author, Alice Hottop, had is to basically take the concept of a bird atlas. You know, there are these books that are like reference books, and to kind of go deeper into some of the stories that are behind those things. So looking at these places and these species, and then also the people, and kind of tracing those links between all of them, and seeing these more like these worlds that we look at a lot of times from a research or scientific perspective, but seeing them from those more personal perspectives. And so then I was trying to bring to life some of the imagery that she described really beautifully in her essays, and just pretty like straightforward illustrations to try and bring people into that world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you have such a great vantage point of like
Yeah.
what that world can
Yeah.
be like. So what about kind of life on an island, on a seabird island specifically, do you feel like that's inspiring or generative for your art?
Yeah, I think the kind of funny thing about it to me is like when I'm working here, like we're just like pretty busy a lot of the time. So a lot of time my brain is going like, okay, like we got to fit this into the schedule, or like, oh, you have to remember to like do XYZ thing. And so you're not necessarily, or for me at least, I'm not in a state where I'm like, oh yes, I feel so inspired all the time. But also like I do get to have all these experiences and see all these things. And I think one of the big experiences of being here is getting to experience this kind of like wild beauty that is here, and that also so many people in my life don't get to see it. And that's true, I think, for a lot of us who work on these islands, or who do this work in like remote places, is that you have all these experiences and you can go back to your family or your friends who are on the mainland and tell them about these things, but you always have this feeling of like, I can't quite, like, I can't bring you into that space.
Yeah, you don't know until you're there.
Yeah, and so I think that was something that I was thinking about a lot while I was doing these illustrations. And also, like, in terms of inspiration, part of it was kind of easy to get, like, source imagery for, because I really like working, like, from photos and stuff. I kind of need to have something to work off of. And so I spent so much time looking back through my own photos and looking through photos that like friends of mine had taken. And
Ever since humans gained the capacity to wonder, we've contemplated the mysteries and meanings of the night sky.
a, a little bit, it's hard to describe, but sometimes it's just that thing that like kind of pops out at you. You do get a sense of it really as an island that is this smaller piece of land within this wider landscape of water. And then also something that I found really compelling in the images that I was looking at, and then that I wanted to bring forward into the illustrations was this sense of distance and depth. And so having images that had also like a strong sense of foreground and then perspective drawing back, where they really then like put you as the viewer of the image, hopefully, in the position where you feel kind of grounded in the image. And so you feel like you are kind of you are embodying the position that like I was in when I took the photo. I don't know if that quite makes how that translates, but basically just trying to make people feel as close as possible to like them standing in that landscape. And then a lot of what's really special about these islands in Maine, most of them, is that most of them are not treed. And so you have this very similar experience that I've had like in like a prairie ecosystem where you look out and it's just like horizon all around you, and you also have the experience of being like, oh, like I want to go over there, maybe a half mile away, and you just look at it and then you walk there. You're not sort of navigating through a complex space where your view is obstructed. And so I think also trying to pick images of places where you have that sense of how big the landscape feels, even though it is this small island.
Yeah. No, I'm getting that.
Yeah.
And also just being here and hearing you talk about it, I really liked when you said that it's like having pictures of your baby, because I feel like I get this great chance to walk around with you through Seal. And I was like, we were looking for tern nests, and I was like, I'm never gonna find a tern nest before Coco. Because Coco has so many years on me, but also you have just this intimate knowledge of where the terns have nested in the past. You have like this internal map of the island that is, like kind of ingrained in you, which is really cool. So just kind of talking a little bit more about what the like, what it is, the part that talks about Seal in the book.
Yeah.
A little bit of an overview of like what that covers, and then the images that you drew from there.
So there's a few essays that sort of focus on Seal or are set on Seal. So there's a couple of essays about Willie, and then Willie and Millie and their chick Alma. And there's also an essay where Alice describes her experience of coming on one of the tour boats that goes around the island, which also, when we talked more to each other, was kind of funny, because I was like, you definitely saw me. Like, I think she saw people on the island, and I was like, yeah, that was definitely me. So like that thing of like, oh, like we didn't know each other yet, but like we had like sort of witnessed each other in a way. And then there is an essay that's based on an interview that she did with me that's sort of about some of the things that we've been talking about, and about how being on the island like makes me feel a little bit of what the life is like here. And so for those essays, the ones about the birds, I really want to just show the birds because they're so great. How can you not? And also it was important to me that like the image of Willie is not an image of just a puffin. Like that is actually from a photo that was taken by someone else who has worked here of Willie specifically. Sort of have the view of the island from the water, so that you could really sort of feel that view of it, which is funny because it's a view that we don't have very often because we're like on the island most of the time. And so that was something that I had to dig a little deeper to find if like I had pictures of that kind of view actually. And that was fun to do. And there's a detail in that painting for us, who's also such a great friend to this island and really cares for it and has like helped us out so much over the years. So his boat is in there. And then for the essay that Alice wrote about my experiences here, I actually based that on a photo that my friend Elaine took. And she had brought a film camera out here. And I think one of the things that was cool about getting back all of these film photos at the end of the season was that obviously they look older to us because, like, I, mostly have grown up with digital cameras and stuff. So it's a look and a palette that makes you have that sort of nostalgia, often for even like a time that like you didn't quite experience yourself, sort of imbued in that image. And then we also have some really old photos like on the island that people have left here over the years. And so we have photos of people working here 30 years ago. And so I think what was cool about that photo and made me really want to also use it was that was one that made me think a lot about how me and the people who I work with now, how we fit into the story of this project and this island, and how we all have our personal relationships with the island and our love for it. And you kind of have this feeling a little bit possessive, maybe, of like, how could anyone else love this place as much as I do? But of course, like, almost, I think so many people have felt that way over the years, and it is because it's such a special place. And so that image, like, is something that makes me think of that. I don't know if that necessarily like, comes through an actual painting, but that's all of that was sort of in my head while I was working on it. And I wanted to show also like a different side of the island. So it's a view down the island, like in the more southern portion of the island, that shows a lot of these like areas that are really like grassy, and it has a little bit of a view down towards our great cormorant colony. So it's also a view that I feel like is a little bit more unusual, maybe.
Yeah. Speaking of birds like the great cormorant, so I think a lot of viewers very much know there are puffins, maybe razorbills, but maybe they don't know the whole scope of the birds that nest here. So if you could give, I know it's a long list, but just kind of a brief rundown of kind of the populations that call this island home.
Yeah, so we have our 3 alcid species: puffins, razorbills, and then the black guillemot, which are maybe slightly underloved alcid cousins, but they are fantastic. There's a lot of them here too. And then we have our 2 tern species, so our common and Arctic terns, and then the gulls. So there's breeding herring gulls and great blackback gulls here, very on the opposite end of things from our tern and alcid colony. And then we have our 2 cormorant species, the double-crested cormorants and the great cormorants. And the great cormorants are very special because this is one of the only really sizable colonies on the side of the Atlantic. So they're precious. And then we have under the ground, our invisible almost species are the leeches storm petrels, which have burrows in the ground, and they're mostly active around the colony at night. And so we hear them a lot, but we don't see them really very much. But they are really abundant, and we actually don't even know how many there are on the island. So they have a lot of mystery to them. And then we have also our little brown guys. So we have spotted sandpipers, which breed on all the project islands. And then we have savanna sparrows and song sparrows. And then some years we have confirmed breeding common yellowthroats, which is exciting.
Oh,
we have
cool.
A little warbler action going on.
A lot of warbler action, yeah.
And hopefully that's most of it, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. I think the storm petrels, just hearing them at night, I liked the other researcher here, Leah, was like, they just kind of sound like little trolls.
Yes.
And the way that they nest. But yeah, there is just like such a whimsy and mystique about this place. Yeah. So I guess looping back to the art and your artistic practice, you said that it's, and I understand why, kind of getting to shadow what the life of a researcher is, that it's hard to have like be creative while you're doing the work. But just kind of thinking about that overlap between art and science and how the two kind of feed each other. If you have any thoughts on that or kind of your experience with that.
Yeah. Well, one thing that is really funny is I feel like in this more niche seabird world, of the bird world at least, I have encountered so many people who are artists, are really artistic, and I just think it's interesting. I don't really know why that's linked, but one thing that I think about is that when we do science, especially this science that is out in the world, I think what we're doing is really different from someone running experiments in a lab environment, something like that. We have ways that we record what we see, and we have all these data sheets, and those data sheets become records of your experiences, but it's not like you are not here as a full person. And so we have ways that we talk about the things that we observe and see, and we have ways that those are encoded in like letters and numbers and things like that. But you're also sitting there watching these things happen, and we do have personal responses to them, and they're, you do care about these things. And and so I think that also having these like artistic pursuits is a way to get to, for lack of a better word, just express some of these things that happen to you or that you witness. Because I also think that a lot of us do this kind of work, not necessarily because you have as much of just like a pure scientific interest, but most of the people who are doing this kind of conservation related research are doing it because they like really deeply care about the species and ecosystems that they're working with. And so almost all the research is happening in that context of like care and fear for these species, these places.
Very cool. I have similar thoughts. I was thinking about it while I was in my bird blind today. And just, the practice of making observations, it can be both a scientific pursuit and an artistic pursuit, because it's just recording what you're seeing. So just very cool. I think one thing that's popped up for me, it's as a curiosity for you, and I think this is always a hard question for people to answer, but I like to ask it anyway. Just like if you have any just kind of wild stories or like a fun fact of life on an island that comes to mind.
I do feel like a lot of the maybe more dramatic stories for me personally are not, I maybe don't want to share.
Okay.
But not because they're actually that dramatic, but usually they're just gross. I guess one of the things that comes to mind a lot for me, as like real like highlight moments, of being here was I had a really, we had some Arctic terns that we had helped put GPS tags on to track foraging data. And this is part of Keenan Yakola's PhD work. It's really, really cool work, and we've gotten to all help with it on the islands. And it's just supposed to, this tag is collecting tracks for when the birds are going out and they're feeding their chicks. But some of the birds will continue to wear that tag over their migration path. And then a few of them will come back to the island and actually still have the tag on them, which means that they may have their full migration tracks on that tag, which means that tag now contains like the answers to some of these questions that we have no other way of ascertaining about these species that we spend so much time watching. And so a couple of years ago, there was one bird that had a tag on it, and I kept trying to trap it. And it was very wary. It did not want to go anywhere near the trap. We tried different methods. Nothing was working. And eventually, like, it hatched a chick, and I was like, okay, it's over, because it can really only trap them effectively in this scenario when they were on their eggs. And then they actually we had a period where we had a lot of gulls around. The chick went missing. They relaid, so they laid another clutch of eggs. It's like, oh my god, we have a second chance. That's obviously stressful for the birds, but in this case it was very convenient. And then it was also our season that was incredibly wet, and so we don't go into the tern colony when it's wet out. And I knew that this bird was reliably incubating of the two birds on the nest in the morning, and it was always wet in the morning. It was foggy, like, every morning. And finally, there was one day when we had done our storm petrel mist sending the night before. I had slept for like 3 hours, and then I had gotten up to do this like sunrise puffin study. And it was a sunny morning. And so I finished at 8 a.m. And I was like, either I could go back to bed, or I could go out and try and trap this tern, because the grass is dry and everything's dry. And I caught it.
Yay!
and it was really exciting, and I was like full of adrenaline. And that was like such an incredible moment to be holding that bird in my hands too, because I had spent so much time watching it. And the Arctic terns are so beautiful too. Everyone that you get to experience is magical, but also just like having this sort of preciousness of this object attached to this bird, and to also get to like take the object off of the bird. Like, you are now released from this. And then that tag had full migration tracks on it. Awesome. And that bird was the one that like went all the way down to close to Antarctica, and then it like whipped over to the west coast of Australia before spending the whole winter foraging along the Antarctic ice shelf. And so it was a really interesting, like, long track. And that was really, for me, this like culmination of just like the research being really exciting and cool, and then getting to have this kind of intense personal experience of challenge and success. So that was a very like high point for me on the island. Yeah,
that's so cool. Yeah, you get to, like, as an academic, or just even as a bird person, as a lay person, getting to like hear about this research and the tracks and the birds. It's really cool, but you kind of the personal experience of it behind how that works, and like the physicality even.
Yeah,
like,
where you're like, I have to get this little thing back. It's like this big, but like we need it.
Yeah, it's not like up in the sky. It doesn't come right back to you. There's so much like physical work that goes into this job.
Yes.
And I think something that I've been impressed just witnessing in you is just like how physically adept you are, or adapted to this environment. And I was just wondering if you have like a background in it, or if it's just like come with years. Like the rowing that I've seen you do is very impressive. That does take
practice.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think there are ways that your body gets better at being in places like this, and part of it is a thing of like, I think our brains, when we spend a lot of our lives walking on sidewalks, when you are suddenly then walking over like uneven rocks 100% of the time, like your brain has to get used to that and how to like spatially map where it's like, this is where my foot is going now. And the rowing definitely took time. As my first supervisor could probably attest to, I splashed him a lot when I was first learning to row. And then had some good trial by fire experiences on some of the more difficult islands in terms of landings and the waters around them. But yeah, I think it is so fun to feel like your body knows how to move across these spaces. And now in this island in particular, like, I know like all the places that we walk all the time, like I know most of the rocks, so I don't have to like think about it even. I have the path in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, having this, it's like it's is it the largest on the project, the island, or is it one of the largest?
It is the largest, and I always
Yeah.
forget exactly how big it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is the biggest.
It's the biggest on the project, but still a relatively, contained space. So
Yeah,
you really
yeah.
develop like
Yeah.
a map and a sense for the
Yeah.
place. Anyway, I think I keep getting off of the book
okay.
itself, but I think just where can you find the book if viewers are interested? How can they get a hold of it?
So there's two ways. If you happen to live in Maine, I believe it is being carried in most, if not all, independent Maine bookstores.
Very cool.
And then it is also available online. Through you can get it through the publisher's website, so it's at Littoral Books, which is Littoral, so like the littoral, like the edge of the sea.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
All right, cool. My internal clock is telling me that's roughly half an hour. I didn't.
It's perfect.
But yeah, thank you so much for chatting, and so interesting, and it's been so lovely spending time here. I've been having a blast.
Oh, well, me too.
Yay.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in, and thanks to Coco for sitting down to talk with me. It was really special spending time on the island with her and getting to, pick her brain, not just during the interview, but throughout the week. She's truly a special human being and knows just so much. So thanks again. If you guys are interested in more Project Puffin and bird related content, there will be another webinar on the 18th with Remy Moncrief. He will be talking about ospreys as anglers. So ospreys, the forage fish that they are that they feed off of, and their struggles specifically in the Chesapeake Bay. So that'll be a really interesting one. There is another webinar in early July on the 9th with one of our Hertz fellows who will be talking about how to track a tern. His research is in specifically roseate tern tracking. So yes, the importance of habitat flyaways and also how tracking species can help with their conservation, specifically with species like the roseate tern, which are really struggling right now. And the final webinar that I will be hosting this summer will be on August 6th with Julie Wallace, who will be talking about the Atlantic puffin in warming seas. So this webinar will specifically be covering how the warming seas in the Gulf of Maine are affecting the puffins that nest here and the availability of forage fish that they rely on. And this is really cool research specifically because she used the Explore cameras as data for her research on how marine heat waves are affecting the forage fish populations in Maine. So be sure to check those out. And thank you again.